Kat Drazen and Sarit Klein are the hair and makeup department heads, respectively, of House Plumbers on HBO. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. I want to begin with a question for both of you, and we can start with you, Kat, just on how much you knew about Watergate before joining the project, especially about our two central characters, Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy.
So, quite honestly, I knew very little. I knew from a little bit about the Watergate incident that happened through school and learning about it and listening to my parents talk about it whenever that subject came up. And then, of course, any movie that came out that was about that subject matter was really the only history that I had on Watergate. I really didn't know much about Hunt or Liddy prior to starting the project. So it was a very exciting and new adventure for me, certainly to not only learn about the history of what happened, but to also really dive into these characters and their personal lives, which I don't think was really out there ever at the time. Of course, Gordon was much more a front man after the Watergate and had, a radio series, and I also think like a television series, and he really loved being in the spotlight. So there was more information about him to find. But prior to the project, really just general education.
How about you, Sarit?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually born and raised in Israel. So knowledge of Watergate was very little. I did grow up in an American home, but we didn't really discuss that. And I did move to the United States 20 something years ago. And obviously I learned more about Watergate, just in general history. But then when I got a call for House Plumbers, before I got the job, I started digging in to see who are the characters involved and reading books. And of course, I did watch All President's Men, years ago. But once I got the job, Kat and I just had months of prep because, like Kat said, there was not a lot of knowledge of the characters. And this show actually portrays more of the family life and their relationships with the family and Gordon and Howard. So to answer your question, there was not much knowledge for me about it. And then now there's so much, and I feel like I teach a class about it.
It's so exciting. I feel like the viewers learned so much that I'm sure many didn't have any clue about either. Sarit, another question for you on when I talked to Leah Katz-Nelson, costume designer on the project, she said it was really liberating to not have a lot of kind of photographic evidence or footage of these characters from before the trial and before the hearings. Of course, we know about the roles they played, but not a lot of pictures of what they looked like, what they were wearing at the time. Certainly, the hairstyles and the makeup that you would use. So how did you both find that process of kind of, is it liberating to be able to create characters from before you have to kind of match their looks from the testimony? What was that process like of really being able to explore and to build character for those earlier years?
Yeah, I think it is liberating. And I think that it's a huge collaboration, and we rely, Kat and I and Leah, heavily also on casting. From the beginning, we had really great communication with David, and he basically said that he wanted to portray the characters as authentic as possible and not to have, the hair and makeup distract from the actual story. And if a certain cast member wasn't an exact physical match to the pictures that we had, then we should, portray the essence and the soul of the character. So for instance, like you're saying that there weren't that many pictures for Kiernan Shipka, we used Trisha Nixon's daughter, as the essence of that. So the 70s trends based on physical figures that were there, political figures that were there. So yes, it was liberating, and at times it was challenging. And from the beginning, Kat and I had months of prep. We created this huge presentation / document on this Keynote app where we had hundreds of pages, and each character had a page. And when we did have photos, we uploaded all the photos and the existing documentation. And when we didn't, we just put all kinds of mood boards together and inspiration, like, Trisha Nixon. For Dorothy, it was Jackie Kennedy. We didn't have a lot of pictures of her. So we're talking about months of digging through newspaper articles, through magazines, yearbooks. And we actually got, from the creators of the show, we got some photos of, of the Hunts, right, Kat? It was the Hunts' personal pictures of their family, which we didn't know much about. So creatively, it was actually amazing to do this on a daily basis for months before we started filming.
How about you, Kat?
I agree with Sarit. It was liberating to have some creative freedom in designing these looks of these characters that really we had not seen much of, even during the trial and after, in regards to the family members. So, we had a guideline, a design and a direction, of course, the time period, the fashion. Certainly our older, more mature characters, the parents, they kind of touched on a bit more of a 60s style, whereas the youth and the children were much more like hip 70s, whether it be conservative or a bit more liberal. We really got to narrow in and hone in those designs for each character, with the general idea of being as close as we could be to this real life person. So yeah, it is liberating. It is challenging. It is also good to have, a very strict and definitive look, but in this case we really got to exercise our creativity and come up with these looks cohesively with Leah and Sarit and our teams, and design these characters. It was quite free in that way,
and fun.
It was a lot of fun. I actually brought one prop that I'm going to show in regards to that. So the props department was able to locate these magazines, these authentic life magazines, which were hugely, and they shared them with us, which were a great tool in digging through and finding looks. These are in my closet this morning. I was like, oh, I'm going to grab these and bring them in. But tools like this was helpful in creating the general look for everyone.
Yeah, that's incredible. I can't imagine the amount of research and what you found over the course of months. There's so many character details I want to ask you about. One in particular I have to start with, of course, is Liddy's mustache, which I feel is so essential to the character. I want to ask you both about working on that. I know we do have photos of him from obviously the later years, but how important, this might be a silly question, but how hard was that to get right? And how important was it to make that, exaggerated enough without, kind of becoming cartoonish? Like, talk about, both of your work on really striking the right look for Liddy, especially that mustache. And let's start with you, Kat.
Well, the mustache was Sarit's area and expertise. That falls under the makeup guideline. But in the overall look, certainly for his hair, it was important to be accurate, but a pinch over the top, as Liddy was, and to really touch on this wild character of a person, that he was so really just out there in a lot of ways, in his political point of view and his passion for life and his loyalty. So when designing his look, it was we wanted to keep it really dark. It was obvious to us during that time that Liddy, was keeping his hair as, black or as dark as possible. So Justin was all for that really sharp part, the receding hairline, then coming down into the sideburn area, matching the color. So the mustache matched sideburns and the hair was shiny and stiff. And didn't move, like something that he took time every day to do, Liddy himself. And Justin was such a team player in that, like, he wanted it to look and feel when he walked out of our trailer, he was Liddy.
Sarit, take it away
Yeah.
on the mustache.
Yeah, Justin was all in. From the beginning when we connected, I asked him if he would be able to actually grow that mustache or would we have to lay a mustache? And he assured me, oh no, I can do it. And he loved it. And when we, Kat and I went to his apartment a few weeks before when we did like a personal makeup test just to make sure, that mustache was already there. And then and then we discussed that basically, like Kat said, Liddy would take the time to put himself together, to get together before he goes out to the public and even at home. So we decided to, and Justin was great about it, he would maintain the color at home, whether it would be hair, mustache, and sideburns, and I would groom it. And believe me, there's a lot of hair in that mustache and a lot of, it took months to grow. So every day I would shape it. And interestingly enough, we decided in the design to have Justin wear a bottom mouth plumper. So that actually accentuates and changes reshapes his jaw to make it a little bit more square like Liddy. So while Kat and I were doing his hair and makeup, just before I did the mustache, he would put sometimes a plumper in because that would change the jaw. And that way I would know the exact shape of the mustache. So there were all these little tricks and, you know, to shape his sideburns every single day. And also Justin's eyebrows, which this part I love. Justin's eyebrows are thinner and a different shape. And with all the pictures that I had of Liddy, we decided that I'm just going to elongate them and square them off. So he has a bunch of makeup on. He has, you know, subtle eyeliner. He has contact lenses. He has a mouth plumper. And of course, I had to cover his tattoos. He's known for his tattoos, and we had to cover that every day. So from the moment he sat down, we actually did a time lapse at some point, till he got out, he changed as Liddy. Not only his makeup and hair, his posture, everything, just like it helped his character.
It is an incredible transformation and so fun to see realized on screen. Another character I want to ask you about briefly, this interview will be airing around the same time as episode 2, where we get to meet Dita Beard, played by Kathleen Turner. It's just really incredible when I went back to look at the real Dita Beard, how much you've kind of emulated the character through Kathleen. Talk about working with her and transforming her into this character that a lot of people probably don't know, but really had a kind of pivotal role at the beginning of, you know, the kind of controversy and the Watergate saga. Let's stick with you, Sarit.
Well, first of all, I've always been a huge fan of Kathleen. And when we saw her cast, Kat and I literally jumped out of our seats. And our first introduction with her was going to her apartment for a hair makeup consultation. Kat brought the wig and I brought makeup and pictures. And like Justin, she was so giddy to turn into Dita Beard. She walked into her room, put her wardrobe on, hair, makeup, and when she came out, she was a different person. And what was great about it is that she's also fun. So, you know, with the smoking and just the character emulating everything, she is Dita Beard. And with the pictures that we have of Dita are mainly black and white. And as a mature woman, she's more set in her ways. She's a lobbyist for ITT, so she wouldn't necessarily be open to any trends. So I took a lot of the trends of the 60s and even sometimes late 50s and 60s to create that character.
Kat?
Yeah, so like Sarit said, we were ecstatic when we found out that Kathleen had been cast as Dita Beard. And I mean, she was really the only option, right? She's perfect. I was totally starstruck and just thrilled to be able to work with her. So when building her wig, it was important to match as closely to that shampoo set that Dita rocked, that late 50s look and feel. So, you know, we built a wig, we got it as close as we possibly could, went for her fitting, finessed it. And she truly did become that character as we transformed her from Kathleen to Dita. And she was a huge team player, like wanted to be all in 100% and expected that from Sarit and I. And of course, we did it with ambition and excitement. And I think her transformation is certainly one of the ones that I am the most proud of. And, you know, she was feeling it and we succeeded with creating this character with a limited amount of time that we had once she was cast, and you know, it shows in her performance. It was amazing.
It really does show. One other moment that viewers will not have seen yet, but I really enjoyed in the later episodes, is a great montage of Dorothy Hunt. We won't say exactly what's going on, but we see a lot of very quick changes, changes of costume, changes of hairstyle, changes of makeup. Talk about, and we'll start with you, Kat, on this. Talk about when you see those scripts and you see this kind of montage of a dozen or so, I don't even know how many kind of cuts and quick changes. How exciting is that for you? And, you know, how challenging was it to kind of pull off that, you know, that kind of very short but really impactful sequence?
It's extremely exciting. It's a moment to really showcase what it is, and what it was that I could do in a short amount of time. During the montage, we you know, shot it a lot on the same day or over a couple of days. So I had to really plan out 10 looks that had to be done quickly in a lighting setup that were period accurate, and have that mapped out and established to go, so we could move and shape and restyle as quickly as possible to get through our day. It is one of the best things, honestly, about the job that it is that we do, is having that challenge, that creative challenge. And there's a little anxiety that goes along with it. Like, is it going to work on the day in a short amount of time? Like, can I actually pull this off and have it look incredible? And, you know, with the help of my team and with Sarit and brainstorming and putting together these looks, we were able to do it quite well. It is one of the great things. It's playing. We essentially get to play. And we're so lucky, not without anxiety, but it is a play platform in that way. So when I saw that montage bit, I mean, completely excited and thrilled, and began mapping out how it was that we were going to do it, what accessories we were going to use to achieve this montage over time.
Sarit?
Yeah, I think planning is imperative. There's no way we could pull this off without planning the looks, but also Kat and I discussed every single look prior and what would be involved in it. And Kat and I tag teamed basically all our actors, just to also save time, but also it would just be, you know, it's kind of like a dance, Kat and I. This does this does this, and it helps actually create the character. And so for this, I felt like in a candy store. Okay, I have all these products that I can choose from. And to plan it, I basically created Ziploc bags with each specific lipstick, if I change the frosty eyeshadow. So each one had the C number, and I would prep it all in advance. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm very meticulous with notes. And I think that's how we could seamlessly make this happen together as a team.
Incredible. I mean, like I said, the final result is really, really fun to watch. It sounds like it was a great process to put together. Very briefly, before I let you both go, I just want to ask you about the later scenes in the series. I don't think it's a surprise or a spoiler to say that we do see some of the trial and some of the famous Watergate hearings. Just talk about when you're working with a historical event that does have so much footage, and so much kind of, it's so well known in the kind of, you know, popular consciousness. What is that like in terms of your process of recreating these looks, taking some liberties where you can, if you wanted to, but really trying to be as historically accurate as possible? Sarit, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think those were a few of our biggest days of the show, because we're talking about hundreds of people in the hearing. And the way David, our director, kind of set it up is he was seating people according to the footage that we had. So we tried to closely match the cast and the background actors. And we're talking about hundreds of principals and background together. We had dozens of makeup artists that day. So we tried to match them as close as possible, obviously based on who we're casting and who we have. So that was an interesting challenge that, again, needed copious amounts of prep, knowing what we're going to be filming. And sometimes we actually only knew the day before, sometimes we only knew the morning of. when they brought, let's say, a background that didn't exactly match that, which is another situation Kat and I dealt with, looking through every single day. Kat and I sat for hours sifting through pictures of background options, giving notes, especially when we're talking about big days like the hearing, right, Kat? Kat and I would take our iPads to set while we were watching the monitor and our actors going through notes. Okay, this one has lash extensions. We can't do that. These tattoos. So we had a lot of moving parts to prep for a day like that. And that on its own was a challenge. But I think once we saw it on camera, we felt, you know, sense of relief, but also it looked so beautiful when it matched.
I bet. Kat, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, those scenes were extremely important, and there was conversation with David that we were aware of, especially the background at this particular point in our story, and when we filmed it, to be able to match from a photograph of when those trials were taken to when it was we were filming, and to just you know, touch on what Sarit said. We did have to sift through hundreds of background every single day and decide whether or not they're going to need a wig or a hair coloring or extensions or a certain updo, or mustache and sideburns. Like, how do we take an individual of today and make them look like somebody that was sitting in the row right behind Hunt at, you know, at his trial, to make it as believable? Those scenes, it was important that we you know, really went that extra mile to match. So it was challenging. We worked with Leah as well. We would show up on set and stand there as a team with David, Leah, Sarit, myself, and look and make sure that we were all happy, and sometimes move people around if we had to really achieve, you know, that what it was that was desired for those particular scenes. So, you know, through that process and collaboration and planning, lots and lots of planning, that's how we were able to achieve the success of those scenes.
Incredibly successful. Kat Drazen and Sarit Klein, congratulations to you both on White House Plumbers. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.